This time I'm going to look at a Canon XL2. This is a 3 CCD interchangeable lens mini DV camcorder, and it was the most expensive that Canon had in their consumer lineup. But the one I had was better. I always get a kick out of cameras like this was it XL2? I think it's an XL2, this one. 3 CCD XL2, yeah, XL2. I always get a kick out of cameras like this because they would have video modes like 24p, 30p, and 60i, and people would get all excited saying, "Oh, that's 24 frames. That's like film. It's going to have film-like looks." But in reality, it didn't, because, well, all it did was it just operated the sensor at 24 frames, and it still recorded on tape as a 60i signal. So it was converting 24 frames to 60 interlaced and recording it onto a standard mini DV tape. But what it did was it made the picture kind of look a little like film. Let's take a look at the image off the screen. So they want to give you that film look, whatever that film look is. Oh, look at the sensor. It's got dirt on it or something. See the two spots on the screen that tend to not move? That might be on the lens. You can certainly see, actually you can see 3 of them there. Anyway, 24p kind of looks like that. If I switch it to 30p, kind of looks like that. And if I switch it up to 60, well, now it's nice and smooth. One thing you'll notice though is if I go to some of the slower frame rates, you'll start to see jaggies around things like the electrical cords. They don't look quite as clear if you look around, like down around that here. This is 60i, panning back and forth. Put it on 30 progressive. Now you see you get the strobing effect, and if I put it down to 24p, you really get the strobing effect. But you see what I mean? It's stepping. But it was a big buzzword that they would sell people on and try to convince people that it was better. Anyway, this one here is in here because it has a problem with the tape deck. So I'm going to put a tape in and play a tape back. Now this machine has just been cleaned. I just cleaned the heads on it, so it's not dirty heads that's causing this playback problem. And press play, and you notice the picture is breaking up. Now this was not recorded on this camera, this was actually recorded on my camera, and I know that the tape is good. I can play this tape back in my other playback machine, in actually all 4 of my playback machines. I can play this back in the camera that made the recording, if that camera would actually be working, which currently I don't think it is because it hasn't been used in a while. But this was recorded on JVC GY DV500, which is a real professional camera, not a consumerized camera that claims it's professional. But we definitely have a problem here. It could be a tracking problem, but definitely it's got some issues. As you can see, it's having a bunch of read problems. Could be a bad head too that's causing this, because worn out heads will give you this type of an image on digital recordings. Now this camera, I'm just looking at it for a client who has not even purchased it yet. He's considering purchasing this camera. So I'm basically just giving it a once over to see whether it's something that he should invest money in. And of course my answer to most people when they say, should I invest money in a DV camera? It's like, really? You want to record on tape? Okay. Because I personally can't understand why anybody would want to record anything on tape these days when SD card recording is so much better in every way. But to each his own. I think this compartment should come off now. It should lift off. I think it's just two screws holding that on. I want to look inside the tape compartment here. That should pop off. There we go. Now we can access the tape transport. Put the battery back on. And of course this is mini DV, so it uses the 6mm tape, 1/4" tape, right? There was all kinds of different names that they were thinking of, and one of them was quarter cam because it uses a 1/4" wide tape, 6mm tape. But mini DV was chosen for the small cassette version. First thing I want to do is I want to see if those guides have come loose. So this has the 2 tape guides on it, just like a VCR. And if the tape guides were to come loose, it would certainly explain why it's looking like it is. Again, it may be that the heads themselves are worn. But I want to see, first of all, whether those guides are loose. So these are the tape guides I'm talking about right here. And that one appears to be relatively loose. It should not turn freely like that. How does this one look? That one's not so bad. It might be an alignment issue. I'm just going to pop the tape in here and see whether I can adjust this without having to tear the camera apart anymore. I think I can get at the guides. Yes, I can. The guides are right there. I'm just going to try tweaking this guide, and I'm just going to do it while looking at the picture on the screen. Because it might just be an alignment problem. So let's see what happens when I try adjusting the guide here. Will the picture pop in or will it not? Well, I think I got it. That's looking pretty good now, doesn't it? It's looking pretty darn good. Let's see if we got sound. We should have some sound on this. I think it's just natural sound. May not have recorded any sound on this. I forget when I made the recording. I'm just going to try tweaking the other guide ever so slightly, see if my sound will come back. But I'll go get a different tape that's got more than just some still shots on it. This was a tape I wanted to put in at first just to make sure that I wasn't going to damage the tape. But it's looking good now. Playback on it's looking actually almost perfect. Oh, there is sound on here. You can hear it. I just had the outputs plugged into the wrong set of outputs. There's this can do 4-channel sound. So I had it plugged into the other ones. It's gonna be on 1 and 3, 2, 4, and then it's got audio 2, channel 3 and 4 input output. So this unit is in the there's a different mode because DV supported stereo or 4-channel sound, so you could have a doubleable soundtrack if you recorded in 12-bit instead of 16-bit. And I just so happened that I wasn't paying attention on the side of the camera here, and I actually have my outputs plugged into these ones, which is the channel 3 and 4 only if you're in that mode. So we have sound, and this unit is playing. I say this tape was recorded on my JVC GY DV500. I'm going to put another tape in. The eject switch on here is kind of flaky too. I had to press it 3 times. I got another tape. This was recorded on. This was either recorded on a VX1000 or a GL1 Canon. I don't remember what I used to record this, but it was one of the two. They're both 3-chip cameras, so both will look good, but I don't remember. That shot came off of a Digital 8 that I had dubbed in there for some reason. Had color bars on the beginning, so I think this would be a VX1000 because I don't think the Canon had a color bar generator, but I could be wrong. This is the flea market that I was at, Ham Radio Flea Market. This is the raw footage from it. This is on my channel. The edited version of this is on my channel, but this is the raw footage. I know a lot of the guys here, and a lot of them aren't with us anymore.
What do you say? What? What do you say? Welcome everyone to the Burnaby Amateur Radio Club Flea Market. We've been standing in line for about 20 minutes, and now we're in. It's fairly crowded, so we're going to take a look around and see what deals there are to be had.
Cue the music.
It's a great deal. A lot of perks and everything. Harry, where you got all these 2-meter radios? What are you trying to do?
Isn't that nice?
What are you trying to do?
Hey, how you doing, Dave? How are you, man?
Hey. What do you need, Cooper? You need stuff like that?
Yeah, looks almost like it.
What do you need? Oh, I need to be the dipole.
So I'm just letting this thing play here just to make sure it's tracking good, but I haven't seen any issues with it so far. This is from back in the day when we could actually have ham radio flea markets. We haven't been able to have those for a few years. But this would have been a state-of-the-art receiver. The IC756 Pro would have been a state-of-the-art unit back in the day when this was done. This was probably 20 years ago. I don't remember what year it was, but this is probably 2001, 2000 or so. So I think this was shot on my VX1000, but it may have been shot with that. I don't remember whether I was using that camera to shoot it with. I may have shot it on that. I know the other stuff, the flowers and stuff, were shot on this one. I kind of think that was a VX1000 that I shot that one with. It's either a VX1000, Canon GL2, or that. And by that, that's $7,500 right there. I used it only for about 3 years, and then it was put away because I upgraded to full HD.
An Archer Color Supreme antenna preamplifier, which actually might come in use for something. I don't know what it was.
Anyway, this camera now appears to be working. Now I know the $64,000 question that someone's going to ask is, how do you prevent those guides from turning? Well, you don't. Because you see, unlike other types of tape transport that use these movable guides. Of course, I'm speaking about VHS and 8mm and even mini DV that had set screws on them. This particular transport does not. There's no locking screws that I can see on the side of these guides to lock them into place. Instead, what they rely on is there's a spring that's underneath the guide that's pushing up. So if you're inclined to start fiddling around with the guides, beware. If you turn it more than about a turn, it only has about 2 turns of travel. And if you turn it counterclockwise and get past the end of the thread that's on there, it's going to actually push the guide up, and then you've got to push it back down and turn it back into place. So the way to set these is you turn them all the way down until they're tight, and then you start to carefully bring them up, because if you start turning them counterclockwise, the guide can fall apart, and then it's a kind of a pain. Well, if it falls apart and you lose the spring, you're in trouble. But anyway, they do have enough resistance on them that they shouldn't turn. What generally happens on these things, what makes them go out of alignment, well, they will eventually go out of alignment. It's a given that that's going to happen at some point. But it's heating and cooling, right? When the unit is hot, cold, and you get expansion of dissimilar metals, and just through vibration, they will start to go out of alignment. And well, when they go out of alignment, you have those playback issues like this one experienced before resetting it. But now that I've set it back up, it's playing back perfectly. And I did it without using a scope, which just goes to prove to you that you don't need to use a scope for these units. On this particular camera, I wouldn't even know where to connect the scope. I'd have to take the whole thing completely apart, find a manual for it to put it on the scope, to look at the waveform coming off the tape. But you know what? It's pretty easy to do it. When you're adjusting the side on the entry side of the head drum, so in other words, on the camera, looking at this camera here, the guide that I was adjusting, which was the entry side guide, it affects the picture more on the left side than the right, and the other one on this side affects the picture more on the right. So looking at the transport with the guides down, with the tape wrapped around the head drum this way, this affects the left side of the picture, and that affects the right side of the picture. Kind of the opposite of what an analog format does, just the way that the digital signals are striped on the tape. That's just the way it is. But it is possible to set them up without using a scope. The sound is the last thing to come back, so you can have a picture that looks relatively good, but if there's no sound, you're close, but you're not quite there. That's it. Anyway, this one's done. I'm going to let it play here for just a little bit, and then we'll put this one back together. There's one thing I absolutely despised about these camcorders. They got this big ugly LCD. Sure, it's got a magnifying glass on it to make it look even bigger. The problem is it's not sharp enough to focus. That's one of the things I always despised about these cameras, where they said, well, we're a professional camera, but then they put an LCD screen on it, which you can't manually focus. Any pro camera in that era that was truly a pro camera, such as the one I just showed you, actually had a black and white CRT with about a 900 or 1000 line resolution screen, so you could focus that thing just like that and know that you were in focus. A true ENG camera for professionals. So all I need to do on this one now is, well, I guess I have to stop it first. See, the eject switch is kind of flaky. Sometimes you have to press it more than once, other times you just have to press it once. So I think that would probably, it's a little pin switch in there, probably with repeated use it will correct itself. So now all I need to do on this is just put the cover back on this one and send it on its way. I can let the guy know that was thinking of buying it that yeah, he can buy it. It's working. It wasn't working when he tried it out, and that's why he brought it to me to check it out, but it's now fully functional and can go back into service. So the side cover just snaps on. It's just plastic, and it just snaps into this metal clip on the side here. This is probably going to be the hardest part, getting this to clip in. I'll just use my screwdriver to hold it in place. There we go. And that side's ready to go too. Fix this camera only taking out 2 screws. Incredible. Oh, it may help if I put a battery on. Won't do much without the battery, will it? So we close this down first. And then close that. One final test now that it's back together. And there it is. All done. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.
The only thing for this shot is the auto iris wouldn't work on it because of the bright background, so we've got a manual stop down iris. So the iris for about F11 to record this.